Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Public hearing is now open. Could we have our animal control officer please come to the podium?
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Kelly. I'm the Bluffs Animal Control Officer. I'm here today for animal control to go over a potentially dangerous dog in the town of Oak Bluffs. We've had 2 bite incidents, one January 2023 and 1 year later, January 2024. The dog belongs to Tim Lowe at 23 Rogers Way, and his name is Dewey. Both incidents happened in different locations. The first incident happened in the neighborhood on the public road or private public road. And then the second incident happened at the Tradewinds Dog Park. Both incidents, the dog was off a leash and unprovoked, running after somebody and bit them. Both incidents led the victims to go to the hospital and be treated for bite wounds. And then in addition to both incidents, I have received a couple complaints from neighbors that say that the dog is often loose in the neighborhood, which is a concern because it shows aggressive behavior. It's followed a couple neighbors down the streets. It showed aggression, and they worry that the behavior is getting increasingly worse. In no means am I recommending the dog be euthanized today. It's just a simple protocol to, what is it? And the recommendation to follow the recommendation. Yeah.
We have your recommendations. Thank you.
And the recommendations I am making are to install a double gated entry at all entrance and exits of durable construction. If the dog is let out on the property and not leashed, it's there to provide a fenced enclosure of at least 6 feet in height, providing at least 300 square feet. The fence must be made of durable construction in a manner which prevents the dog from escaping and installed in a way that prevents digging. When the dog is removed from the premises, the owner or keeper of the dog shall have the dog humanely muzzled, the basket muzzle, and restrained with a chain or leash having a minimum tensile strength of 300 pounds and not exceeding 3 feet in length. The owner or the keeper of the dog shall provide the town's licensing authority or animal control officer information by which the dog may be identified throughout its lifetime, including but not limited to veterinary record, licensing, documentation, picture, microchip, or a combination of any such methods. And the owner or the keeper of the dog must provide proof of insurance in the amount no less than $100,000, insuring the owner or keeper against any claim, loss, damage, or injury to the person's domestic animals or property resulting from the acts, whether intentional or intentional, of the dog, or proof that reasonable effort was made to obtain such insurance if a policy has not been issued. Provided, however, that if the policy of insurance has been issued, the owner or keeper shall produce such policy upon request of the hearing authority or a justice of the district court, and provided further that if the policy has not been issued, the owner or keeper shall produce proof or efforts to obtain such insurance. And the final one is if the dog is moved to a different municipality, the owner should immediately register the dog as dangerous with that municipality. And these are all basically listed under MGL chapter 140 and 157.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Kelly at the moment? Yeah.
I'm just reading the conditions. I understand. Just one I had a question on, is that one of your proposals is to have a leash doesn't exceed 3 feet in length. Is there a reason? It just sounds short.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that the dog is allowed to be out, the dog has to always be restrained. I understand it's going to be muzzled, but I'm just wondering how realistic 3 feet is.
Yeah, the 3 feet came recommendation from the state. Massachusetts general law recommends 3 feet for a dangerous dog. It's in the chapter of 140. At the same time, as if you do have a long lead and you're in a place with a dog park and things get really exciting, the dog can
No, I
walk
understand.
10 feet by you and you could not even notice it. So,
Yeah, I understand.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Jan happened to have it right here, and it's
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any deviation from it. Okay, we're good.
any other questions from the board right now?
No.
Would anyone from the public, this is a public hearing? Are there any there anyone who would like to contribute to the conversation? Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'm attorney Casey Bilble for Mr. Lowe. Good afternoon, members of the select board. The last time I did one of these, I called Skipper Mantry your honor, so please bear with me if I make any similar mistakes today. I am here on behalf of Tim Lowe. This is not something where we're going to try and argue that these fights did not happen. We're not going to try and argue that there is no problem, and we're not going to try and argue that the dog does not need any conditions. We fully agree. There are conditions that are required. This has happened twice now. Mr. Lowe is extremely regretful of it. He feels awful. We're not going to try and argue that either person provoked the dog. We're not, nothing like that. We're just hoping that we can come to some kind of conditions that will reasonably address the problem at hand. We are in full agreement that the dog should be on a muzzle. I would think that instead of a 3-foot leash, perhaps just no retractable leashes. The retractable leashes are frequently where dogs are more likely to be able to run off, get ahead of steam. If it's just a standard leash, you know, I'm not really sure that that's going to be a problem. Mr. Lowe also notes that this most recent incident happened while he was taking care of his neighbor's dog. He was running with both of them. The neighbor's dog is very excitable. He was more concerned about that dog, and he got distracted and did not realize that even after the incident, he did not realize there was a fight. As soon as he found out, he immediately apologized, immediately hired a trainer. The dog is working with a trainer right now. And he took steps to ameliorate the situation. Again, we're not asking that you say this dog has no problems. We're not asking that you say that this dog does not need any conditions. We absolutely agree. A muzzle is required. He's going to continue working with the trainer. The trainer has written a letter of support, which he would not write until he had worked with the dog 3 times. The trainer, which I have a copy of, I don't know if the select board has been provided with that.
We did get that back.
The trainer, again, would not write this until he had interacted with the dog enough to be able to make an opinion. He does not believe the dog is dangerous. I would suggest that the dog perhaps be labeled a nuisance and be required to wear a muzzle, be leashed. I would suggest that because none of these incidents actually happened on Mr. Lowe's property, and because the dog does have an electric fence that he abides by, he listens to the electric fence, that the fence requirement is not necessary. I understand that the town of Oak Bluffs has to make sure that ensure the safety of the town. This has been brought to your attention now. You can't just let this go. But if the dog is muzzled, I do not think there will be any further issues. This is also not an incident where a dog comes up, grabs on, won't let go. The dog gets startled, bites, and runs away. It's not a grab and shake. It's not a, continue chasing somebody down. And I'm not saying that that makes it okay by any means. I completely understand. Nobody wants to be bit by a dog. It's incredibly upsetting. It's scary. But this is not a situation where a dog is going in for the kill essentially, or any kind of serious damage. Again, Mr. Lowe is really happy to work with the select board and really willing to do what he deems necessary, and he will do whatever the select board deems necessary. But I would suggest that because the electric fence is working, and because the dog, one time Mr. Lowe tried to walk the dog and he had forgotten to take the electric collar off. So he was bringing the dog through the fence and the dog stopped, freaked out, wouldn't go any further. The dog is afraid of going past the electric fence. Obviously, we fully agree the dog should not be unrestrained. The dog must always be leashed when it is not on the property. And I would suggest that based on the circumstances and based on the steps that Mr. Lowe has already taken to indicate that he takes this seriously, that he does not think that this is something that he can just brush under the rug or take lightly, that it would be in the interest of justice that the dog be required to be muzzled when it is not on Mr. Lowe's property, that he be required to maintain the electric fence, and that he be required to take the dog on a leash and only duty, not with any other dogs, because that was a major issue that led to this problem because Mr. Lowe was distracted by Chloe, the other larger, more outwardly aggressive dog. So he has already volunteered. I believe you have his letter, and he is fully committed to doing all of that. He's been a Martha's Vineyard resident for 38 years. He volunteers at many local charities and committees. He's a good guy, and he feels awful about what happened. He's not looking to point fingers at anybody but himself, and we're just hoping that the steps that we can take will be proportionate to what has happened and proportionate to what is necessary to make sure that this does not happen again.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions? Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
not a, comment, but I have another question that came up, it's just about the leash issue again. And I don't know, is there a provision that, if we issue an order, that the order is good for a certain period of time and that the applicant or the owner has the right to come for a review? Do you know? I mean, if we do an order, the order, it seems like it's permanent for the rest of the dog's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility of, I haven't seen it, but I don't know if there is, to come for a review after a few years?
I mean, I'm not particularly sure. It does say in 140, he has the right to appeal. I don't know if that's right after the event or in 6 months, if that's the case. I'm not sure.
I can answer that
It-
if you would like.
sure.
If the appeal must be filed within 10 days, he could not appeal it unless this is done in 10 days. I'm hoping that if the board would be interested in agreeing to have this be reviewed at a later date, we could do that, but I think it would have to be something that the board did.
So the once the dog is labeled as such, that is for lifetime. It doesn't go away with maternity type of thing. Right. Is there any difference between, Kelly, and if you wouldn't mind coming up, if you can use the microphone, it just translates better for people listening as well. My question was, if this dog were to be labeled a nuisance as being suggested, what are the differences in things like the leash?
I think
No?
the case goes completely differently.
Okay.
The dog has to be brought up in like the same thing as a nuisance, so.
A nuisance is usually more about noise.
Yeah, nuisance is about being, being loose, which the dog was as well, but loose, noise, wrecking other people's property, that type of thing. It doesn't include fighting and aggression.
And so a label of a nuisance dog would not carry with it the requirement for like a muzzle.
I
Probably,
think it could, yeah,
okay,
yeah. I would have to say also about the electric fence that I do think that electric fences have multiple faults and require power, so it's not always 100% that electric fence would protect the community from a loose dog in the neighborhood.
that was going to be I'm not sure, I wasn't sure if I was going to phrase that as a question or a comment, but that one of the incidences happened in the neighborhood, and so and there's been other reports of the dog out in the neighborhood, which means it is getting through the electric fence. So then my question is because, right, there's a couple things that have to happen. The dog has to have a collar on, the fence has to be powered. And then, I of course have seen dogs who just get too excited and go through the fence
Yeah,
at all
that's,
costs.
that's the limitations of an electric fence, which don't fully protect.
There's-
They're not as durable as a 6-foot fence that you can't dig through, but, yeah.
Okay. Anything from the board at the moment? Anything else from the public at this time?
I would just like to add on just one more
Sure.
very quickly. The times that the dog has been reported as being loose in the neighborhood, the dog that Mr. Lowe was with at the time of this most recent incident is a neighbor's dog. He goes and he feeds the neighbor's
Yeah.
dog. Before any of these bite incidents happened, sometimes he would let the dog out and he would not, this was not when the dog was being restrained by the electric fence.
That's right.
I would also just state that I am not sure if that neighborhood would allow a 6-foot fence, and if there is a fence requirement, that perhaps would be a little bit less restrictive than a full-on, this is not a large dog, this is a small dog, and I know small dogs can jump, I have small dogs, but.
Didn't I see that the dog was 87 pounds?
Oh, never mind, my apologies.
Yes, large dog.
I'm not sure that I'll have to look at our covenants to see if they allow a 6-foot fence.
I understand that's a possibility, and that could be unfortunate. Kelly, did you have something else?
Yeah, I spoke with the association president
Uh-huh.
and discussed that there might be this case coming up and a 6-foot fence might be enforced by you guys, and he agreed that it could happen, he just has to submit his plan too.
That's nice of you to do.
Maybe it can't be a green chain link fence, maybe it has to be something a little different. Sorry, I have a question of process now. Are we going to close the hearing and then vote? Or does this board need to take a vote within the public hearing? I'm just sort of looking at my agenda.
I think from general procedural, you close the hearing and then you
And then,
discuss and
okay,
debate whatever you're going
Yep.
to decide to do.
okay. Thank you, just confirming that. Anything else from the public? I understand there's other people here, but you perhaps have put in written testimony. We have, read all of this. Are we ready? Yes.
Well, if anybody from the public would like to speak to the issue of nuisance versus dangerous, that would be helpful
I was.
for us.
We need to get people sworn in on
Oh.
offices. That's why Colleen is here. Our ACO is a sworn officer, so she's fine, but we should be swearing in people. That's why Colleen is here.
They need to be sworn in.
All right, we read the law, it says that the hearing authority shall investigate or cause the investigation of the complaint, including an examination under oath of the complainant at a public hearing in a municipality to determine whether the dog is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog. If they're going to be
Right.
making statements regarding the public hearing, they probably should be
Yeah.
sworn in under.
Let me just say that if it's factual, if it's your opinion, that's one thing, and that's, if you want opinion, you can, we're just supposed to listen to the facts. So that's what a hearing is, usually it's somebody's testimony, but if it's an opinion, I don't know if you need to put them under oath, because there's nothing to lie or not lie about, unless you're gonna give facts. So if you're gonna give facts from your experience, you may wanna take an oath,
Sure.
but I don't think we should be listening to, people's opinions.
But what Tom's question was sort of like, can we talk about the different, if,
Oh,
Yes, if there is somebody in the room that has had a personal experience with observing or being assaulted by, that would help us, I believe, in determining nuisance versus dangerous because of the consequences of the latter. And I don't think it'll change the recommendations, perhaps. It could still happen with nuisance and dangerous label, but the label of the latter stays with the dog for life, correct?
It's just for the complaint.
Thanks, Kelly.
This is my understanding.
And actually, it does say for the complainant.
We
under oath of the complaint, so the complainant is the animal control officer, so everybody else can just.
so
make
perhaps
a-
it's just Kelly that needs to be sworn in when she is.
Hearing authority shall investigate or cause the investigation of the complaint, including an examination under oath of the complainant at a public hearing in the municipality to determine whether the dog is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to speak.
And I would love for you to come to the
Okay.
podium and
But
step
I
on up
have
and
to go
introduce
under
yourself.
oath Too, I can
Okay.
do whatever is appropriate. So my name's Nicole Corelli. I was the one who was bit in January 6th. And I was running in the woods. I didn't realize that that is considered Tradewind's dog park. It's actually the back of the Oak Bluff School. It's probably 15 feet from where the playground is, and there's a basketball hoop. It's right there. So if that's the address, that's the address. But I run there since 2017, probably 4 days a week. And I often run in the dog park, and I'm never intimidated, scared, or shy away from a dog. I had a 72-pound dog. I'm just not nervous of dogs. We had seen Mr. Lowe, who I didn't know who it was, but my husband had known who it was. I was running with him. He was in front of me. We were single file, running, and we saw them, approaching us, the two dogs. He had one on the leash, his neighbor's dog, and then the other one was not on the leash. And then that dog had charged at us, and we stopped running and just started walking on the path. He passed my husband, went behind me, and I didn't even look back at him. He passed me. And then it felt like a bite, but on my butt. But it was like 20 degrees out and my legs were numb from being so cold because it was January. So as soon as he scurried along and passed, I had like looked and I noticed he had broken skin. And I was like, oh my God, he bit me. Because I couldn't tell if he had like come at me with his mouth and just his teeth had like, whatever, just like pressed up against me, or if it was an actual bite because I was so numb. So we called the police, who then got in touch with the dog officer to let them know what happened. They both instructed me to go to the hospital. I was supposed to be at work at 9 o'clock. It was like 8 something in the morning. We had like half a mile left of our run. And so I said, I'm just gonna go home. I'll rinse it with peroxide. I'll wash it. And then when I looked in the mirror, like I could see all his teeth and like a puncture wound. So then I was like, oh, okay, that's a little different. And then my husband's like, what if he, ate like animal, whatever, like bacteria, whatever. I said, yeah, you're right. So I went to the doctor, I went to the ER, I had to pay my copay. And then I sat there for an hour. Luckily, I was, in and out pretty quick. I had to get an updated tetanus shot because I hadn't had one within 5 years. You have to have one within 5. And they put me on a course of antibiotics. And a month later, February 6th, I still have a mark on my butt. It's still like a purple, black and blue, whatever. I've never been bit by a dog.
Can I just ask, what's
Yeah.
been helpful, at least to me?
Yeah,
It was unprovoked. Those are things we're looking at. It was unprovoked. It was, okay. It was like one bite. It wasn't hanging on. It wasn't
No.
an attack. It was from behind. It was
Yeah.
a big hard snap and then left because you didn't even know it.
yeah.
We
he
have to
took
consider the
away.
dangerousness of the dog and the
Sure.
second incident. So
Sure,
that's,
but a
what-
bite to me, which is my opinion, not factual, a bite to me is a bite, whether he latches on and stays on,
Mhm.
or he just bites and then runs away. You still are being bit. I didn't ask for it, I didn't, it was, it ruined my day, it ruined the next week I was on antibiotics, it's just a pain in the butt, and I'm
Literally.
not asking, exactly, I'm not asking, like, I don't think the dog should be put down by any means, because I don't ever think it's the dog. The dog should be leashed and it should be muzzled whenever it's in public. I mean, it was on a Saturday, we were 15 feet away from the Oak Bluff school, what if there were kids out there? He could have that would have been devastating. So he was not leashed and he should be leashed, especially knowing, and I didn't know this at the time, but that he bit somebody else, to me, there's a history,
Mhm. Thank you.
so that's it. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If we don't have anything else from the public this time, would entertain a motion to close the
I'll
public
make a
hearing.
motion to close the hearing.
Second,
There's a motion from Gail and a second from Dion. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, public hearing is now closed. Now the select board can finish our discussion and deliberations. I really appreciate the conversation, the responsibility that the owner is taking here, and the recommendations from the ACO. I'm still inclined to call this dog a dangerous dog. I understand that the fence requirement sounds like it could be hard. I understand the 3-foot leash sounds really short. I understand that. It also sounds like this dog has the potential to continue to be a good companion. And so this is, for me, this is the best way to continue to protect everybody else. And I'm also find it slightly unfortunate that there is no expiration date of it. But I don't know how else we could today, so I'm sorry, then I'll let, we could today say, oh, well, you're now on probation and we can give it another 6 months. But if something worse were to happen in the next 6 months, we would be responsible for that. We would, I'm not sure if we would, or we at least feel responsible for it. And if nothing happens in the next 6 months, but on that 7th month, something worse happens that we could have prevented, I would feel the same way.
My apologies, I know this is deliberation.
closed
time.
it.
I have a procedural note, that's all.
What is your procedural note?
Just that the law does not require that you order all of the conditions, just that you order one or more of the conditions. that
Thank you.
the dog is not dangerous.
Thank you. Anyone else from
sure.
the board?
So first of all, sorry that we have to have this hearing. I too reading all the information, and talks about, the dog's disposition changing a little bit, which was part of what was in the different, correspondence that was given to us that, appreciate the actions that you've taken. I understand that that Dewey is a companion, that he'll still be able to be home. He'll still be able to do the things with you, Mr. Lowe, that he needs to do. But he does represent a danger to others. And so that's why, I'm also inclined to, to have Dewey as, as a dangerous dog.
Yeah, I'm inclined, well, no matter what we do, nuisance or dangerous, would be in support of doing at least 4 of the 5 remedial recommendations. The 5th would only happen to register or notify the different town or city moves to about the status of the dog being dangerous. I would be inclined to impose 4 of the 5 and label the dog as a nuisance, because you're still doing the same remedial approaches, and I would do all 4. That, because it would be what we would do for a dangerous dog. With the, maybe he be labeled a nuisance or dangerous at this time, as long as the remedial, these actions are being put in place, that's really the bottom line. So we would still end up with the same thing, with the same protection of the community, as well as for the dog, and continue to work, with the trainer and with the owner, and then possibly be able to come back, well, I would like to have an update if that's possible.
So your motivation behind the label of nuisance versus dangerous is that this board would have the chance to review it again. Although all of the same things would be asked of the owner.
Correct.
Okay.
I agree with Tom. Just to give an opportunity to review. The real seriousness thing about the bite is that it bit a person. And I'm a dog owner and my dogs have been attacked. But it's been an attack, this is a bite, not that it's any less, but when you bite a person, it's dangerous, and when it happens twice, it's very serious. But on the other hand, reading the trainer who wouldn't put his neck out, I don't think. And considering that it didn't seem like either situation that it was battling. It doesn't seem that it gets into fights or violent fights with other dogs. I would like to give a chance for a review with imposing, the restrictions that the dog officer has suggested, and maybe a chance for a review in 2 or 3 years. But I can go either way, actually. That's when I think about it and talk about it, because it is very serious when you bite a human being. I don't think, personally, I don't even think the dog should be left outside, fence, electric fence or no fence. With a propensity of that, I would feel nervous, because, should be controlled at all times and muzzled at all times. And clearly, I think this dog is more of a challenge to keep under control, so in any event. I agree with the limitations, and I agree with Tom, though, also give an opportunity for a review.
I like the idea of a chance for review and also a second chance for the dog and for the owner and for training. And I worry that, first of all, administratively, the truth is that something like this, especially if this isn't really in the ordinary set of procedures, that we won't end up reviewing again unless something bad happens again. So that's my worry. And then the last part about if the the owner moved to another town, none of these things will carry with them. And again, I just worry that, and then what if something bad happens in another town and some child really is severely hurt? That would be my worry. And in addition to these, I mean, as Mr. Lowe has offered up, is that, and sounds like, I believe that the trainer reiterated, was the idea of only having Dewey and not having other dogs on the leash at the same time. That sounds reasonable, and I'm glad that everyone's in agreement in that. That's just something that wasn't in the original conditions from the ACO. Well, I think we might feel a little torn on this.
I,
We're close. We're close.
well, I just, if I may.
Yep, of course.
I just think with dangerous or nuisance, we're not doing anything differently we're still doing the same recommendation. So if he was dangerous and an incident happened, it might then go to, the level of euthanizing the dog if that happened. But if it's a nuisance, that could still, be a decision that's going, into the future if this, worked out, worst case scenario. But I think we're not making it's really just the label. And if you want to add a fifth to say, if you were to move to another town, and I suppose we could say on the island, if you wanted to keep it within the county, that you would have to, because it only says should, it's
Sure,
a suggestion.
Yep.
It's not us saying you have to or must, and I don't know if the statute is stated should, that it's not our jurisdiction, that you have to, no matter where you move, within the county or the Commonwealth. So I'm comfortable with nuisance just because of the remedial approaches that we're going to require the owner to do.
Do we still have the authority to require these things if we're not using the term dangerous? Yes, I
Because
think so. Yes, please.
it does say that, based upon credible evidence and testimony presented at the public hearing, the hearing authority shall, if the dog is complained of as a nuisance dog, either dismiss the complaint or deem the dog a nuisance dog. If the dog is complained of as a dangerous dog, which is the case here, you can either dismiss the complaint, deem the dog a nuisance dog, or deem the dog a dangerous dog. If the hearing authority deems a dog a nuisance dog, the hearing authority may further order that the owner or keeper of the dog take remedial action
Okay.
to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. It does not prohibit you or specify what those remedial actions
Okay.
can be. So
I'll-
you could
I'll-
still invoke,
You can invoke all the conditions.
All the
for a
conditions.
Dangerous dog.
Yeah, just so, but I'm trying to understand what the purpose of labeling a nuisance versus a dangerous. Because as you said, it's the same conditions, is it the hope that in 6 months or 12 months that you relax these restrictions? Or I'm just trying to understand where we're
Right,
trying to get to.
right. It doesn't close the door, and I don't know what the future would entail. This may be a lifetime thing, but there are a number of letters of support of the owner and the animal from people that I hold, with high regard, that, and then including the trainer, putting his neck out there, that gives me hope that there could be some remediation or not. It's just that once you do dangerous, that option is off the table. So that's my thinking.
I guess for me, if it was the first time, then I would be more inclined to maybe lean that way, but that it's the second time. I just have a harder time because it's the general public that we have to protect. And we'd like, and Mr. Lowe's part of the general public too, so we want to make sure we protect him and Dewey as well. Right, and so that's what about I'm looking at this.
And for me, there are also, while there are also many letters and people in support of Dewey. We are also getting other reports of other types of unprovoked aggressive behavior that have not actually resulted in bites. But other things that are making people scared.
And just to be honest too, part of this is to protect Dewey
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, right? To put him in a place where he can thrive and he can enjoy you, Mr. Lowe, and your friends and what you do. He just may not enjoy the rest of the general public, and that's okay. But we want to make sure that we, you know, that we protect Dewey and yourself as well to be able to continue to have that relationship.
Sorry, I'm thinking really hard about this. If you're to recommend going down the path of nuisance, would you set a time limit? Would you say a nuisance dog for a certain number for 2 years?
Well,
And then say, we'll talk about it in 2 years, and if nothing bad's happened, then the fence can come down?
Just like we have had people who we've questioned around, you know, owning a license to do X, Y, or Z in the town, and we've questioned their past record. We're having them come back for a review. And I would have it short. I would, you know, do it in 6 months. The remedial, you know, approaches that we would require would be permanent, like those,
Okay.
you know. I mean, well, I shouldn't say, but.
Why would you have a
Right,
review?
right, yellow.
Kelly, do you have something?
Well, I do feel that a dangerous dog is defined as a dog that bites. A dangerous dog is defined as a dog that bites, a nuisance dog, not necessarily. It's a dog that barks 8 hours throughout the night, you know, so they are different. And I think we're talking about a dog that bites, not a dog that muzzle bumps someone, he bit someone, as well as, the review. I mean, you can see in the facts that this happened 1 year ago. And all the same things were said. A trainer was gonna be hired, the electric fence was put in, which is great, I really appreciate it, but these events were a year apart from each other.
I think the quandary is too, is that there's a propensity, and when there's one bite, that's one thing, but when there's two, and especially close in time, as you say.
And the first,
You can't take a risk of mistake,
yeah,
or that something's not going to work, or it's not gonna go out of your hand, so that's what's dangerous about it, you know, it's a toughie, and it's, I have dogs.
my dog wears a muzzle.
Yes. So it is a quandary, I don't know, I'm torn myself, I would go for, you know, upon application of the owner within, I would say 2 years. Cause maybe things will settle down in 2 years and, you know, with the restrictions that are suggested, maybe they're not gonna be so bad and they'll work. So, you know, upon application for a review, from the dog owner and not have it an automatic review, but I would do it much longer than that. Or just deem a dangerous dog and have the permanent restrictions.
I'm inclined to go with the original recommendations. Would anyone like to make a motion? Should we go, are we ready for that?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the ACO findings as with the stipulations set forth, as Dewey as a dangerous dog.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. That was a motion from Dion and second from Gail. Any other discussion? And so what yes, Deb,
May I just
Do we
make
need-
a point
Sure.
that to do a fence,
yeah,
it says the time to comply with the order is 2 weeks. You may want to give a little bit more time to comply with the fencing restriction, because I don't think anybody can get a fence done on the island in 2 weeks. So you can implement the vast majority of the recommendations, but I would think in all fairness, you should consider a different timeline for that one part of it.
that's a very fair point. Perhaps a
friendly amendment
Mhm.
that Dewey's owner, Mr. Lowe, will work with the ACO to agree on an acceptable time to, for a fence, working with the homeowners association, and that it's possible for him to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. Any abstentions? All right, so that carries. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Motion yeah, anything else?
Motion, no more motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone.